All right. What's up, everybody? This is Devin with Gaming in Progress, doing an interview today with Variloh regarding the Angry Joe Show Army, the video series he did, and Gamergate, and so on. Uh, First of all, I'd like to let everybody know that we did have a Skype discussion prior to this, just so that's out there. We talked a little bit beforehand about his video series and such, and I'd like to welcome him to our show today.
Hey Devin, thanks for having me.
No problem. Um, well, let's get right down to it. The first question I feel everybody wants to know really for people who haven't seen your series and for people who have but still may want to know this, what exactly made you create your series about the Angry Joe Show community?
That's a good question. Well, basically, it's kind of hard to fit into a small window, but I'll do the best I can because I know the time is here is relatively limited. Um, Basically, what made me create the series was a combination of, first of all, my ban, me being banned in a sense that I didn't it didn't really feel justified. The people and how they were treated regarding hashtag Gamergate, the overall censorship that I perceived was going on regarding Gamergate, and the thing that kind of set flame to the fire was then realizing that commanders, specifically Craig, were saying things to people once I was already banned, and to get them to not contact with me. So at that point, it became personal, and I felt that I had a moral obligation and a duty aside from all of this, that I knew this was going on. I knew that censorship of Gamergate was bigger than just me. Um, so with all of this combination of motivations, some selfless and some selfish, clearly as I just stated, transparently to everyone, um, I felt the need that I couldn't sit on it anymore, and it was a 2 month process. And I said, okay, this has to come out. People deserve to know that this happened, and people reacted. And thanks to, in part, the conversation of Gamergate is reinstated again. Thanks to that and V Monroe's efforts, um, the Gamergate conversation is happening again. So some good came out of it.
Okay, now you mentioned that it was in part because of how you personally felt you were unfairly banned. Uh, do you feel like your personal feelings at all maybe kind of had a negative effect on your video series?
That's an interesting question. The first thing you have to keep in mind is it really doesn't matter who does what. Um, Everyone's always going to have their own personal bias, their own personal, feelings getting in the way. I've asked myself the question because, as I said, this is something that I started doing before I was actually banned. If you look at the video series, and I know you have, but if your audience looks at the video series, they'll realize that the majority of the screen caps, grabs, and information I used in recordings were prior to me being banned. So I was already, on the verge of doing this. It was something that I felt needed to happen. Did my personal feelings affect? Of course they did. Of course they did affect the series. Is it negative? Well, that's relative to the viewer. I very purposely allowed myself to not speak in a politically correct manner in multiple videos. I wanted to be brutally honest. I wanted to show not only, I wanted to be transparent in every possible form, and many people don't necessarily agree with that, and that's fine. But if you strip my video series down, if you strip it away from my personal interactions, if you strip my ban from the video series, if you take away, those emotional moments, if you take away the forum with the moderators, if you take away my conversation with Craig after I was banned, you still have multiple things there that affect the overall conversation. Gamergate was still banned. That has nothing to do with me. People like Rainiversary were banned. That has nothing to do with me. People like Aron posted a forum feeling that censorship was not okay. That has nothing to do with me. I didn't even post in that thread. Um, the moderator still mocked a user who was leaving. That had nothing to do with me. The Angry Joe Show Army rules still contradict one another. That has nothing to do with me. Officers still engaged in gift battles that broke their own rules, and either lack of moderation, disinterest, or simply allowing them to do whatever they want because they're officers, excuse me, not moderators, officers, that still happened, which is the officer gift battle. So if you strip away everything that has to do with me, the issue is still unchanged. My ban is just another thing that piles on it. I'm a human being. Of course, this affected me. Of course, it affected me in a negative way. It's obvious. I mean, it did cause emotional distress. Of course, it did. And of course, my feelings did show. And of course, they were a part of the series. Do I believe that it takes away from the general message? I do not. I personally do not. And it seems that most people who have viewed it agree with me. Um, but there's always feelings involved. There's always everything involved. Joe himself in his GamerGate thread, his feelings are right there, and I don't see that as a detriment. I see that as an admirable quality. Too many people in today's culture speak like robots and emotional, with no emotion and just completely, quote unquote objective and bringing the facts and that's it. And it kind of strips the humanity away from it. And this is an issue that has a lot of humanity in it. So my feelings were on display. Do I feel it was negative to the overall message? No. Did it affect my tone? Yes. Is that a bad thing in itself? That's up to the viewer. Personally, I believe no.
Okay. All right. How do you feel um, your video? What do you feel it has? What kind of impact do you feel it has had on GamerGate members?
Well, I believe that the entire issue when it comes to, because this is going to be a long response. I have to package it into two portions, um, because it's a very deep question. The first effect I believe it has is that it brought forth once again an issue that's already been boiling around, which is Angry Joe and his stance on Gamergate and his actions regarding Gamergate. Um, if you take a look at the blistered thumbs articles, at the conversation about Angry Joe that was going on before I even came forward, if you look at V Monroe's videos that he's made, if you look at all of the information that's been around, there was already questions about Joe. I also made a open letter to him months before any of this actually happened. So the question was always there. I believe that the effect it had is that it got people to question, it got people to talk to Joe, and obviously trolls always show up. He's been trolled since the beginning, since he became famous. Obviously, that continued now. But I think the general effect that it's had is that it's made people in Gamergate question, hey, maybe we should concentrate on game ethics also regarding YouTubers. Maybe they're not immune to this. But overall, I think the effect that not just my video series, because my video series is just a speck of dust. I'm irrelevant. I'm just a stepping stone. But the entire conversation of Joe has had, the short-term effects is the reallowing of Gamergate to be a conversation allowed in the AJSA. It's made Joe come a little bit more, come out a little bit more. It's allowed people to kind of identify, okay, let's see, can we have an objective conversation about, big YouTubers and Gamergate, and what is their moral obligation, if any. So I think it's just to give it too long didn't read, since a lot of people seem to like that. The series in itself didn't do as much as part of the bigger picture, as part of the entire thing revolving Joe. I think it got people to question. It got people to to not simply allow things to pass just because he's a big YouTuber, and not just him. Same goes for people like TotalBiscuit, for example. It's made people question. It's made people think, and overall, I think that's a good thing.
Okay, well, in relation to that, how do you feel about what's been going on involving Joe on Twitter?
That's a mixed bag. First of all, I've followed most of Joe's comments regarding Gamergate uh, since before this whole thing began. In fact, in the video I spoke of, in the open letter of him, all of his tweets up to that point were in the video. So when it comes to Angry Joe on Twitter, I believe what you're referring to is the big argument he had with Italy GG. I believe that's kind of where you're going, and I'll answer that in a moment. But when it comes to Twitter and Joe, he's an e-celebrity. He's a YouTuber. He's gonna get hate, as he always has. The responsibility he has is to be able to identify the hate and identify the real issues and engage the issues and deprive the trolls of oxygen. His co-worker, friend, whatever you want to call it, TotalBiscuit, uses that phrase a lot, but it doesn't seem that he kind of has internalized that in that sense. Now, if you're talking about the situation with Italy GG, I didn't read all the tweets, but here's how I feel about it. Questions were raised, not even about him, about the council members and commanders and general administrations in the AJSA. I raised that question. Bimonro raised that question in the video that he commented. He said other things in the past, but none of that was taken into account by Joe. He responded specifically to the video that was talking about the administration inside the AJSA. He took that conversation, and instead of engaging me, instead of engaging Vimonra, instead of engaging people like Sargon or William Usher or Press Fart to Continue or the Ralph Retort, instead of engaging people who can bring issues, or instead of engaging the accusations at hand, he chose to engage a troll. That was his choice. Okay, he's a human being. He obviously has a right. He has a right to be emotional. I mean, if I do, he does as well. But I believe that it shifted the conversation into, is Joe anti or pro, which not only is a deflection in itself of the real issues, but it does a disservice to himself and to Gamergate, because it completely stops talking about a real thing. A real important thing was censorship in his community, something that he can solve. He can solve it with one word, and he solved a chunk of it by creating the threat himself and vetoing all of his commanders and council members. So what I feel about it is, I feel that he engaged a troll. I feel it was his choice. It was a deflection. I understand that he's human, but I personally believe that he should have been more selective onto who he answers and why, especially at that time.
Okay, that being said, do you feel the facts of your video have been lost at all? Because the videos were more targeting or more towards the community itself and not so much Joe.
Lost is I believe at the beginning it was lost. I believe at the beginning it was, the deflection worked very well. Him attacking V Monroe's video and Total Biscuit following suit. Both videos that talked about the forums, and talked about the AJSA and Joe's involvements, things like that, including one of the videos, the video that Joe responded to, was actually all. I even accused wrongly Vimonro of copying my information because it came a day after my playlist, because he actually used the exact same forum that I used, that was Aaron's censorship forum, where he spoke of how censorship is. He felt censorship was going a little too extreme in the AJSA. It was wrongly accused by me, and we've already made amends, and we've had great conversations afterwards. But at the beginning, the message was lost. However, I believe Gamergate has changed the face of the industry forever. It's changed the community. It was lost, but then picked up quickly by people who were interested, by people who wanted to know the truth. And the direct result, you're seeing it now. You now have the Gamergate thread opened again. And we can only see what happens next. We can only see if that is just a token to get people to be quiet and then close it when things die down, or if this really is the beginning, hopefully, of change in that community. So it was lost at the beginning, but I believe that the facts are slowly getting out there. More people are interested, and the reality of the fact is that the facts are still moving, and the proof is you're interviewing me. The proof is you came to me and asked for this interview. So it's still, it's still getting out there. You can't hide from the internet.
Okay. Well, you talk about change. What exactly do you feel needs to change in the AJSA community?
That's a great question. You see, when I made this playlist, people thought that, well, people like Damien Rain initially accused me of just being somebody who was interested in his own band, and creating a soap opera, and felt bad about his band, um, which was not. I felt bad back in November 3rd at 12:03 a.m. when it happened, but after that it has to become bigger than myself, and I'm arrogant. I'll take that, um, but I can see past myself. What I believe needs to change now is, well, the first thing was reopening the GG conversation, which Joe did. But now the second thing that needs to happen is that there needs to be a serious look at the administration. If this is a community that is supposedly about its users, as they claim on multiple places, that it's about you guys and your combined powers, and notice that I say you guys, not I'm no longer including myself in that group. You guys and your combined power. If it's about you guys helping change the gaming industry through dialogue with the developers, with Joe as a figurehead, okay, dialoguing on your behalf, then there has to be a better way to get the information from you guys to Joe. And if this is truly a democratic system, it does not show. It really doesn't show right now. There's three ways of fixing it. Because Joe picked the people with all the power in the community, the only way to keep them in check, the only way for them to be reprimanded or vetoed, is if Joe participates in the community himself. Something that not many people, not just myself, has said that he doesn't do as often as he should. Eisner was a founder, and he spoke about this in the video. That would be a immediate fix if he could get more involved in the community, because it would allow people, if most people want to talk about something, you know, he would be able to see that and veto commanders, because his commanders and council members do make mistakes. The second thing, if that's not possible, because Joe has way too much work to do, which is acceptable, then what needs to happen is that commanders and council members' decisions need to be analyzed. They need to be taken under the microscope by him, in a self-evaluation process, which could happen once a year, by the way, and they just had their anniversary, so now is a good time as any. Um, uh, uh, are you there, Devin?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, I'm sorry, it seems it cut out there for a second. Okay, so as I was saying, they need to be evaluated, and commanders who are not, in the for lack of a better word, hug box that is formed in the higher ups in the administration need to be put in place. What do I mean by that? Well, if you look at it, you can call the administration anti-GG, you can call them pro, you can call them whatever you want. But what seems to be very much the case is that they all have very similar views on things, not just Gamergate. They all agree. They're all good friends. There doesn't seem to be any disagreements going on there, because whenever a decision is made, nobody questions. Nobody's allowed to question. Nothing really changes. What they say is the law, and that's it. There's no voices of dissent. We need voices of dissent in positions of power if Joe's not going to be around, so that this community can be run in a truly fair fashion if their objective is to have a community about its users. If it's a community that's really just about Joe, then this doesn't need to happen. So those are a couple of steps to fix the administration. The third thing that needs to happen, first one being opening of GG, second thing fixing of the administration in one of the two ways that I've detailed. The third thing that needs to happen is Joe does not need to take a public stance on Gamergate, but it does need to become better informed. There were many, many things in his post that were just screamed plain ignorance. That's not evil. That's not, an indictment on him, but it's a fact. For example, he actually did say in his post that 8chan was created for Gamergate. That was said by Brianna Wu, and it was proven to be wrong right in that interview. 8chan is older than Gamergate. So I would suggest that he talk with Sargon Avocad behind cameras, or behind the scene, or in private. It doesn't matter. To talk to Sargon Avocad, or somebody in that vein, um, and get informed, and just generally get informed of what's going on. He has, at the very least, in my opinion, has the moral responsibility to his viewers to take a stand. But at the very least, we can all agree that he has a moral responsibility to understand what's going on and not misrepresent. Because for what I saw in his post, which is by the way open to the general public, for what I saw in his post, his 2014 controversies video is not going to truly contain facts. What's going to happen, in my opinion, is he's just going to mention it in the most general way possible, and he's going to characterize it incorrectly, as he did in his post. He 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 kind of made as an indictment that we have to embrace that we do have quote unquote radicals, though that doesn't really mean anything. Um, which I'm assuming under the context of what he wrote are harassers. That we need to embrace that we have harassers, and this is a lot and a lot of people. That is an argument that anti-GG uses, and it's the reason why he gets conflated with them so much. I believe that in reality this is a problem of ignorance, not malintention. So he needs to get better informed. So those are the things that I would like to see this cause. We've got one. Let's see if we can get the other two.
Okay. Speaking of Gamergate, what is your position on Gamergate itself?
Okay, well, right now, to explain my position, you have to understand how I view Gamergate. So I'm going to briefly comment on that. Gamergate, in my opinion, has a schism. Okay, it has a division between two sides. Okay, one side of Gamergate are those who say we just want ethics in gaming journalism, and that's it. Okay, we just want ethics, nothing else matters. Then there's another side that says that they also want ethics, but they understand that there is an underlying problem and that you can't have ethics if you don't solve the root problem, which is the, whatever you want to call it, social justice warrior agenda, progressives agenda, whatever you want to call it, extreme liberal agenda, whatever you call it. And they understand that this is, in fact, a battleground of a bigger cultural war that nobody asked for, nobody wanted, but is nonetheless there. I am in the second group. I believe that it's about ethics in gaming journalism. Obviously, we all want that, but I believe that we cannot truly have a real quote unquote victory until we address the center problem. It'll just repeat itself in a never-ending cycle. It's like a weed that you don't rip out from its root. It'll just grow back. Look at Metalgate. Okay, look at how they've infiltrated not just the mainstream media, because look how the mainstream media has treated us. They haven't even allowed people to give our side. They gave Christina Somers 2 minutes while Anita Sarkeesian was going on the Colbert Report and the New York Times and all of those things. And Brianna Wu was saying that she was forced out of her home when new evidence is starting to suggest that she never left. So, but again, nobody questions. And so the real problem is that there is a corrupt ideology. Do we need to concentrate on the faces of this corrupt ideology, like Brianna Wu, Anita Sarkeesian, Rebecca Watson, and those type of people? No, we do not. All we need to do is show this ideology is broken, explain it to the gaming industry, show it to them, which many of them have really, come into contact with it and understood that this is the case, so that this kind of things don't become acceptable again. YouTube is the next, it doesn't matter if we burn Gawker to the ground in the grand scheme of things, and that's something that makes a lot of people upset when I say it. But the reality of the fact is, if we burn Gawker to the ground, if we get all Games Journal fired or quit, or those things, the reality is that we will see the same thing happen in mediums like YouTube, which is the next best thing at this point. So, so yeah, it's a situation. It's too long didn't read. Basically, is that I believe I'm part of the group of gamergaters who believe that new wave feminism, or whatever you want to call it, new wave progressive, progressives, or whatever you want to call it, um, new wave liberal wing, or whatever you want to call it, is a problem that needs to be addressed. And I also believe that ethic in gaming journalism extends beyond just bloggers, because if we fix them, we'll fix them right in time for their funeral. YouTube is going to be, is already becoming the next medium that people almost exclusively listen to in relations to reviews and stuff like that. So we need to we need to draw a line in the sand and and guide YouTubers, because they, like, game bloggers, they didn't have a guide. We allowed that to happen. In part, it was our fault. So my view is, I'm a gamergator who believes in ethics in game journalism, but I do believe that SJWs are a problem that need to be dealt with in a ideological fashion.
Okay. What is your exact issue with social justice warriors and new wave feminists?
Well, I quite frank. Well, that's a really long that's a really long answer. I'm going to try to compact it as much as I can, but we could do an entire section just on that. But so I'll try to very much compact it as much as I can. But in essence, I'm 24 years old. Okay, I am from Generation Y, many call it, or the Millennials, depending on what author you listen to. But independently, these two generations have something in common. We grew up with the idea that conservatives were bad. Conservative bad, to put it very simple. We grew up in a time where conservatism was represented by gun nuts, overly religious people. This is almost exclusively in the United States. Religious people, uh, uh, but in a general worldview to keeping small government and things like that, and pretty much just not accepting new wave liberalism. The problem I have with feminism in its current incarnation, which is the mainstream incarnation, might I add, it's not a small fringe anymore, is that I believe that they make unsubstantiated claims, and I believe that they use the facade of feminism to manipulate and change media and make it something that they would approve of. Mostly because of incompetence and mostly because they can't compete unless they use these type of excuses. And it's the same with, neo-progressives or whatever you want to call that specific group. An example, a popular example, look at Brianna Wu, look at Anita Sarkeesian, look at, Zoe Quinn. This is, according to them, the worst personal time that they've, had in their lives. However, from an economic standpoint, they're doing fantastic. And the reason for that is, it's the best, in fact. The reason for that is Brianna Wu has become famous not because she has actual ability as a developer, and Zoe Quinn as well, but because they were oppressed. It's this entire ideology that has infected mainstream media and the mainstream society that has stopped critical thinking. It's taken very real things like racism, sexism, transphobia, homophobia. It's taken those very real things. The bedrock of this ideology are very real things that everybody is against, and they've made it extreme. There's no limit anymore. So, and anything you say that I don't like, for example, me being Latin, I can just call you a racist, and I'll get away with it. And it's become more and more pronounced in this feminist way of seeing the world. You can see those examples with things like GTA. You can see those examples with things like hatred. It's not a coincidence that all of this happens. So I personally am a liberal. I personally have, very liberally inclined beliefs. I'm an atheist. I'm pro-abortion. I'm pro, homosexual marriage and adoption. Um, so I'm a person who's very liberally inclined. I believe in certain social programs and not just very small government. I believe in many things that are very, very liberal. And as a liberal, it is our responsibility, and not just liberals, it's the responsibility of citizens to identify things that are broken and call them out. So that is my problem with New Age feminism in a very, very short answer to something that we could spend an hour talking about.
Okay. Um, well, in relation to that, what are your thoughts, just getting a little, discussing a little bit further, what are your thoughts of the legal claims made against, fraud made against Anita Sarkeesian?
I'd like to see the evidence, mostly because I have personally not seen all of, I haven't seen all the evidence. I haven't followed that situation as much. I called Anita what she was months ago on my channel. Okay, I called her what she was months ago when she initially got involved. Do I personally believe she's a con artist? Yes. Um, but again, I think it's something that everybody should analyze the information at hand. I think we shouldn't just reduce the conversation to she has been harassed. Um, and I believe that the entire conversation around her from her side is very disingenuous. I believe that, when we talk about her being harassed, yet the Utah thing comes up where the police dismissed it, she dismissed the police and it's harassment, so we can't touch that. So regarding her fraud claims, I haven't seen all the evidence. I can't really comment much on it. I wouldn't be surprised. I believe entirely that she's a con artist. And I believe that the argument's a little bit more than what Joe expressed in his 2012, I believe, controversies video that, you know, people that she wants to take away our porn and we're upset. It's more than that. And I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if she was convicted, and if she did do wrongdoing, I hope she does. I hope she does get convicted for it and pays like any other citizen would for committing a crime.
Okay, well, getting back to Joe in your videos now, do you believe that Joe was entirely was aware at all of what happened to you before your videos came out, or if he's even aware of what happened to you now?
Short answer to both of those questions: hell no. Hell no. If Joe would have seen what would have happened, Joe is a just guy in most of the sense. He's had, up until now, all the accusations surrounding him are merely of incompetence when it comes to management, which is not a sin and it's not something to be embarrassed about. And the second one being too emotional and wearing his heart on his sleeve and being bad at PR, which is one of the things that I actually liked about him. You know, you rarely see that from big YouTubers these days. They're political. It seems like every little answer they give was planned 100 times in advance, except for specific moments. He's a guy that those are his two main flaws, and one of them I see as a great asset. I don't think he was aware. I mean, I'm a small time YouTuber. I have 200 and I don't even have 200 followers. I have 192, I believe, subscribers and 200 and something followers on Twitter. I'm irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. So he's not aware, and the administration has been given all power when it comes to this, said by them at least, and said by him that he has entire trust, and he endorsed them again in his post. So they would have no reason to show it to him. So of course he's not aware. Um, I think he's aware that my videos exist because he responded to a tweet that I was in. I put that up in my recent video, I believe. He responded to a tweet that I was in, but he decided to engage the troll. It's a 4 hour, video fest. It takes dedication to sit down and watch it. And I would assume he may have asked his commanders and council members, and a guilty man won't say, yeah, look at the evidence against me. So they probably told him to dismiss it, and he trusts these people, so he did. Um, which is disappointing. It's also disappointing now that you bring up the subject that not only do I think Joe is ignorant when it comes to my videos, or uninformed, I guess would be the better term. Um, I believe most commanders and council members are as well. Commander Damien Rain showed that in one of my videos, in the officer gift battle video, where he had multiple comments. He discussed things and said that the whole thing was garbage. And I simply not only contradicted him as other users who were part of the conversation did as well, and they demanded for evidence against me, which he was unable to provide. But at the end of it, he even admitted he hadn't seen the videos. So if you're commenting on a series that you haven't seen, it doesn't seem like you're interested in the message. It seems you have a preconceived notion, which he said that the series was about my ban, despite having interviews with high-ranking officers who were guild leaders of Guild Wars 2, which was Eisner, um, and respected members like Doferon. Um, but it shows a disinterest in perhaps maybe looking at themselves and saying we made a mistake. So no, I don't think Joe. I think Joe knows they exist, but I believe he doesn't know or has no idea or no interest in actually finding out what it's about. And I think the blame there is on his administration, and of course partially on him.
Okay, if you could condense the message of your videos somewhat to Joe directly, what would you exactly say to him?
That's a difficult one. I've been asked for too long didn't reads multiple times on this series because of its length, and I've declined providing one because if you do it, you will leave out something. Um, but I'll take this opportunity to talk to Joe directly. Joe, the video brings up three main points, okay, and it's all surrounded regarding your community and GamerGate. The first point it brings is how your council members and commanders treat your community in itself. How they believe that their word is rule, that dissent is punishable by ban, and how they do not care what the community seems to want, which is what you, at least in what it says in the website, It's what you supposedly wanted your community to be in the first place. The second point that I would point to is general dissatisfaction with your community, with the council, and with you not being present. That is something that I believe, you know, is very rampant in your community. It's very much there, and the video series shows it well as well. The third thing I believe is that there is a series of lack of, well, incompetence is again is a powerful word, but it gets the point across. There's a lot of incompetence when it comes to handling the community in general, and the seriousness of moderation, positions, and council member and commander level positions. Very, multiple failures from both moderators and council members are in that series, and I'm not the only person saying it at this point. So, and as an added point, Joe, I would say that there is also a very, very, um, let's say, there's a very big dislike towards Gamergate and people who support it. They have been unfairly targeted, and it's something that I would dare say would still be going on. I heard that there was a member who couldn't change his name, and he was trying to change their username. I don't have permission to say their name, so I won't. But they were trying to change their username, and they weren't not allowed. So that's plain bullying, if it's true. So those are the points in the series, Joe.
Okay. Um, Talking a little bit about the topics you posted in the community, do you believe if perhaps you had worded your topics differently and your posts and messages differently, things would have played out different?
That's an interesting question. And it's a fair one as well. I have been called out on one of my videos by somebody who unfortunately devolved then into a troll, in the video series. But he brought up an initial point, and to quote him directly, he said I kind of acted like an asshole in certain moments. I don't know if cursing is allowed in your series. If it is,
Oh, it's fine.
okay. So, um, but I've thought about this, and I can be an arrogant person. I can be an asshole, if to use that word. Um, and I do believe that I made, of course, mistakes. I'm not arrogant enough not to admit that there were mistakes that I made that, in hindsight, of course, hindsight's vision is always 2020. Um, that I could have done differently. An example would be for when I posted the open letter to Angry Joe, and it was moved without me knowing it. This thread on the forum, I posted what at the time seemed to me as a very innocent a sentence, and in any other context would be an innocent sentence, which was, this is still this was, not getting any views and no one's answering me. Um, but there was a general sense of nervousness when it came to Gamergate in general. Mods were edgy, and in hindsight, maybe I could have worded that differently. Do I think it would have made a difference in general? Well, no, I don't really feel it would have made much of a difference because again, if you strip me away from the playlist, there's just too many glaring flaws there. There's too many problems there. Um, and quite frankly, I'm not the only one who called them out multiple times. The root problem here is that dissent is disrespect in their book. They have two rules, not one for respect. One for chain of command, and one for themselves. One for everybody else, excuse me. The the fact that they can call rule 2 in anything you do and say, okay, no wait, rule 2, you have to bend the knee and accept this. It doesn't show an interest in democracy. It doesn't show an interest in debate. It shows an interest in authoritarian rule. So I feel that it really doesn't matter how I would have worded things, that the outcome in the end would have been the same. You can always do things differently. You can always do things better. I believe I could have done things better. That's just one example. But I think the end would have been the same. Maybe I would have been banned a little later. Maybe I wouldn't have been banned at all, but I still would have had the moral obligation to put this out there and Vimeo still would have made his video. It had nothing to do about me, and the problem still would have persisted. So yeah, I can be an asshole. I look up to George Carlin and Bill Maher. So I enjoy doing satire, and I'm kind of a jerk. So yeah, um, yeah.
Okay. People, I'm sure you've gotten this already, but people will claim that you're just making your series to kind of get in the hopes of getting yourself unbanded. So, what do you exactly hope to accomplish with your videos? What is your end game?
Well, I kind of already got into this, and I think a couple questions ago. But my end game here is, well, the reality here, guys, is I'm a fan of Angry Joe. I still am. I haven't watched his reviews in a while, because of Gamergate, frankly. But I'm a fan of him. I think he's a good guy. I think he's somebody who can really instigate change. But I feel he's lost his way a little bit. I think the fact that he's done more paid promotions than he has done reviews this year proves that. I believe his community can be incredibly influential to the gaming community if handled in a correct fashion. Um, However, it's not because of the administration and how things are handled. So my end game is to fix that because I think that they can do good for the overall, um, for the overall big picture, which is an interesting game in the gaming industry. Regarding allegations that I just want to make money off of this and be a bigger YouTuber. Hey, you monetized all 15 of those videos. Well, keep in mind that many people don't understand how YouTube works, and they don't understand that you have to make a threshold amount of money every month. I will not be paid for any of this because, quite frankly, my videos are currently standing at about $4. They peaked at $6 is how much they made, but you don't get paid unless, in my case, I pass $70. So, and I've gained 40 subscribers approximately because of all of this, which in the grand scheme of things is nothing. And more importantly, and people in the AJSA know this, my main objectives are becoming a game developer and opening a website of my own. That being said, I don't mind if I remain banned. I believe it was under the wrong reasons. I believe that it was unjust. But if my account needs to be remain banned as a, kind of a token of good faith. If the other things become accomplished, if the administration is checked, if that power structure is checked, if Joe decides to become more involved with his community, if he takes a look at if he sits down and start listening a little bit more to the people who look up to him, then that's fine.
Sorry about that, everybody. We had a little bit of connection issues, but we're back now. Continuing on your thought there, Variloh.
So well, I pretty much got it all out, thankfully, before the call dropped. It's pretty much that. It's pretty much that. If my account never becomes unbanned, that's fine. It would be a conflict of interest anyway if I'm starting a website with a forum to be a part of the AJSA at the same time. It'd be a conflict of interest anyway. I wasn't really, I was going to leave it eventually. Um, so again, that's fine. It doesn't matter if I'm not unbanned. I just hope that the things that I've said I would like to see accomplished are accomplished because the AJSA and Angry Joe can be very powerful, uh, 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 you know, very powerful agents of change in video gaming, and that's something that me as a gamer, not an Angry Joe fan, not an AJSA member, former member, band member, whatever you want to call me, not any of that, just as a gamer, I would like to see. So, my more responsibility is there. It's not with my own banning. You can keep my account if you guys want it. It's fine.
Okay. You talk about change. Many people would say that you've changed kind of from a moderate gamer gator to a more radical type. Do you agree with this?
Well, if you've seen that would be referring to my moderate video. The thing is, I don't believe that these two terms even exist. I don't believe these two terms. They're, in my opinion, they're they're labels to kind of delude and divide the message and make it, less important. It's sad that I can use that I can actually say the phrase, I remember the good days where we were all gamergaters. Not liberal, not radical, not moderate, not extremist. We were gamergaters and trolls. Now it seems that people, even Joe, for example, is trying to conflate trolls and shit posters with GG radicals. It's contradictory terms. You can't have it both ways. So I won't, I don't accept being called um, a radical, mostly because, not just because of the implication, but simply because I don't believe the term even exists. I don't even believe that it's valid. I'll be doing a video. I've been writing for the past week a satire sketch about Gamergate moderates and radicals and all that. But again, if you just look at the term radical, which comes from the Latin word root, in a political sense, it just means wanting to change everything from the top down. Excuse me, from the down up. It's changing the entire system and how it works. And that's not necessarily a negative thing, but in today's society, we've conflated the words radical and extremist to mean, a pejorative, a negative thing. In the same way that now conservative is a negative thing. And to put myself more spot on the answer, if there's moderate GGers in the center, if there's radicals to the far left or right, what is the other group? Passive GGers? Sitting down GGers? It's all just bullshit and it's bad for you. So no, I don't consider myself a radical. I've made my views clear, but I'll be talking more about this, in the near future.
Okay. Um, you mentioned TotalBiscuit earlier on the tweets between him and Joe. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, he kind of defended Joe. How do you feel about that?
Well, TotalBiscuit has had two interactions in all this. The first one was supporting Joe when he was getting a troll. And the second one was he commented on Vin Monroe's, I think it was part 2 video, um, regarding the whole AJSA thing. In that video, he's talking about how Joe should speak to Sargon, interestingly enough, because Sargon offered Joe to talk about it. And his TB is an interesting topic because whatever you say is going to be taken under the microscope. I believe TB can fuck up too. I believe TB can make mistakes too. And I think that the way he supported this has been a mistake and it's been wrong. I have to, address both of those things. The first one was when he commented to Joe, giving him support. TB is the guy who talks about starving the trolls of oxygen, Yet Joe is finding somebody clearly who's either trolling him or does not represent GG. I didn't read all the things, so it would be, I'm kind of throwing Italy GG with an unfair term. I saw some of the tweets and some of them made sense, um, to an extent. So, I don't want to unfairly classify him if I haven't read his thing. So full disclosure, but we're going to use the generic term as troll here for a moment. But as I said, let's assume he's a troll. Joe chose to speak to the wrong person. There were thousands of people tweeting at him, probably minute by minute, and he picked the most inflammatory one. And TB then went over and acted like that's what the conversation was about. Then he went to V Monroe's video and just completely destroyed it. Did the classic "this is garbage" kind of attitude. Um, didn't address any of the points in the video. Probably didn't bother watching the video. Just criticized his channel as being a tabloid. And what I believe it does is that it brings to the panel a bigger problem, and many people have realized this. People like TotalBiscuit, they won't get questioned. They will not get questioned by Gamergate, because he can do no wrong, because he supported us despite the fact that he doesn't use the tag anymore, which to many is irrelevant, and I would agree to an extent, but it's still there. He decided to say something uninformed clearly. People called him out in the comments section. Vimonro made a response video, and he's supposedly the guy about democratic and speaking to people and reaching out. And instead, he did what can be construed as big YouTuber squashing little YouTuber. He didn't, offer to talk to him. He didn't want to fix things. He just tried to publicly humiliate him. So TB is defending his friend. Um, can TB also be allowed a moment of weakness and of humanity? Of course. But I frankly believe that he's wrong in what he did. And if he ever hears this, I would love to say this to your face, man. I would love to discuss this. I think what you did was unfair. And I think what TB, I think the general action was from somebody who is as rational and as pro-consumer and pro-free speech as he is. It was it was a disgusting thing to me. Again, it's not an indictment on the character. He made a mistake, in my point of view, but it's quickly amendable, and it's not damning of the character, but it does bring forth a bigger question. Do YouTubers have to respond to people, to their viewers, and can they be questioned? Because a lot of fanboys don't like that. So
Yeah. Speaking of YouTubers and being questioned, your video brings one of your videos brings up an interesting point, discussing the income of YouTubers. Do you believe the issue of a YouTuber's income is only an issue with Joe or all YouTubers?
no, clearly it's all YouTubers. Being a YouTuber now is equivalent to a profession. It's a minor profession, but it's a profession nonetheless. I'm an engineer. I'm an electronics and communication engineer, and I'm doing a master's in software engineering. I can tell you the title of any of my jobs, and you will find the approximate amount of money that I made on them just by the title. And if I give you the country and where I worked as said title, you can get it almost to an exact pinpoint, accuracy. We can't do that with YouTubers. We have no idea how much they make. We don't have a ballpark. I believe Boogie did kind of, say at some point, relatively recently how much he made last year. A friend of mine told me. Don't quote me on that though. Um, but the general consensus when paid promotion came out was that, well, they don't make enough money. Well, that's fine, but we need to know how much they make so we can understand if paid promotion is something that is a necessity or if it's just something that they're doing, to enhance their living and make even more money. Because if it's a necessity, it speaks to a problem in YouTube. It speaks to a problem, and we the consumers can fix that really damn quick. We can help them out, which is something, you know, it's something that we could help fix. So knowing how much they make would only benefit them in that regard. But I think YouTubers in general they don't want to disclose because when people the general consensus you get from YouTubers in general is that we don't make as much money as people think. Well, how much do you make? And while everyone's in the dark in that, they can do paid promotions, they can do sponsorships, they can do commercials, they can do whatever. And we have no way of gauging if this is just rich people making more money or if this is a real necessity which speaks to a bigger problem. So I think disclosure is important. I don't understand why this is the only profession that does not, you know, require anybody disclosing anything, and why that information isn't public. It should be public. Probably not to the last nickel, at least a ballpark range would be nice to know. Um, but yeah, I think it's important. I mean, it would help me for in the case of Joe understand much better why he's done. I think the number is, and I don't know this exactly. I know your viewers will be very diligent and they'll find the number themselves, but I believe the number was above 30 paid promotions and counting this year because he hasn't disclosed them all yet. Versus what 15, 20 reviews. You know, if it's a very big disbalance that you see there. Very little reviews, a lot of paid promotions. So if we can get a better understanding, how much do you make? And there's a lot of things we don't taking into question. Merchandising is a thing. You can actually buy AJSA thongs on the website. Um, you have that kind of stuff. You have Twitch. We don't know how many. We don't even know how many subscribers they have, so we can't even even begin to understand how much money they make there. Um, the third party deals that they take. For example, does Polaris pay Joe in any way? I don't know. I have no idea. I don't even understand the nature of their relationship. So disclosure is an important thing when it comes to all YouTubers, clearly.
Now, following up on that, do you believe there is a too much that they make?
Well, that's kind of a subjective question in general. Um, no, I don't think there's too much they can make. The issue about disclosure is more about understanding if it's a necessity to for just for bare living, if they're really getting underpaid, because YouTubers should be making a lot of money. I agree with that. They should be making a lot of money. They book a lot of freaking work and they entertain a lot of people. If there are YouTubers who get more views than TV shows get people watching it live. So those people should make money, and they own their content. They're entrepreneurs in the definition of the word. There is not too much. But again, I believe the public should know, because the whole paid promotion thing, especially by Boogie, if you saw his video, was kind of approached from a we need this. We can't survive without this. We need to determine if that is true or not. If that's not true, they can still do it, but now we know. So,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Well, do you have any final thoughts? A message for the AJSA and/or GamerGate?
Well, I guess the first thing we'd like to say is something is kind of echoing something I said in the previous, in the most recent video regarding the update. I think we've achieved a great first step. Reopening Gamergate discussion is a great thing in the AJSA, and they should be proud. This was a group effort. It wasn't just me. It wasn't just Vimodro. It wasn't just the Ralph retort with the previous articles. It wasn't just the people who wrote all those things. It was everyone. It was gamer in general who were interested in. I know many of them formed Steam groups and things like that. So you guys should pat yourself on the back. Um, Gamergate, I think we need to have the conversation about YouTubers. I think they need to be kept in check. They need to be helped more than anything else, because they really have no regulation. The regulation is us. So we need to put aside admiration in the same way that many said we have to put aside hatred towards specific anti-GGers, which to an extent I agree with. Um, but we need to be able to put aside that hatred, and we need to be able to put aside adulation and admiration and look at these people in an objective way, because YouTubers are the future. It doesn't matter if we fix game bloggers. YouTubers are the future. I mean, they've already taken over. Um, so it's something we need to keep in check. And I guess the final the I'm open to more dialogue about this. More people have come to me and they want me to do a second playlist. I'm weighing that. I kindly wanted to put this out there and walk away, if I'm 100% honest. Many people won't believe me on that, but that's fine. I wanted to kind of do it and walk away. My ideal situation was that everything would be fixed after I did it, and we could walk away and not talk about it anymore, and it'd be done. But that doesn't seem to be the case. Um, I would, to commanders and council members who want to pretend that I'm something I'm not. You guys know me. I mean, we can pretend all we want. I was 11 days short of a year being there. I talked to all of you. I had a bunch of you on Skype. Still got you, Damon, on Skype. It seems you haven't, you don't remember my name. That's why you haven't deleted me, but I still got you. Um, Craig, no, you deleted me, so I don't have you. Um, but again, I know that this was an interview where you people were invited, which means you either didn't respond or simply said you wouldn't come on. So that's very telling into if you guys want to actually have a conversation. But I'm open to conversation, and AJSA continue fighting the members continue fighting the good fight. The members in the AJSA are fantastic people. Um, I got to meet a lot of great people in there, and I'm thankful for that. And just keep fighting the good fight, guys. It's gonna be a long one in general when talking about Gamergate. Hopefully the AJSA situation will be resolved. And hopefully those who were wronged, other than myself, can get some resolution and at least get some peace by seeing that this is moving forward.
All right. Well, I think that pretty much wraps things up. I'd like to thank you for coming on and talking with me. And I'd kind of like to re-extend my invitation out to anybody within the community. That includes members, moderators, and even the big guy himself, Joe, to come on. They can talk with you. I'm sure you'd love to talk with them, or they can
Absolutely.
just talk with me directly. and share their thoughts.
Absolutely.
So
Can I plug myself? Got a shill. Um,
yeah, go
Follow
ahead.
me on Twitter, guys, at Variloh, Steam Variloh as well, and YouTube. You guessed it, Variloh as well. Thanks for
Yeah,
having me, David.
no problem.
Kevin,
Have a good one.
you too.
Yeah.